A very warm welcome to our next session, which is on digital transformation cannot succeed without people and HR. Now, the role of today's HR teams is changing dramatically as organizations are moving towards a fully digital workplace. In this session, you will explore how HR leads transition to digital and how successful HR teams support digital transformation. And to present this session, we have with us Brent Colescott, Senior Director, Business Strategy and Transformation, SumTotal, a Skillsoft company. In his current role, Brent helps organizations achieve outstanding business performance through the optimization of their HCM strategies, processes, and technology. Thank you so much for being with us here, Brent. It's completely our pleasure. And thank you for taking our time. It's early morning for you. So welcome and please take, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. You're correct, it is very early in the morning here, but happy to be here. So I appreciate the time this morning, this afternoon, to talk about digital transformation. It's something we see as very important in organizations to not only adapt, but thrive in the new economy. So want to just kind of go through, jumping ahead. Little technical snafu. All right, here we go. So wanted to talk about how our world is changing as we are transforming within it. And some of the things that we're seeing are happening outside of the walls of our offices, but really are impacting what's happening inside them. And that's the changing expectations of the workforce. When we look at what the technology that we deal with at home, that our children play with, and then we come to work and we see processes and systems that don't naturally align with those expectations, we're feeling very disconnected. We don't believe that the organization is operating at its best when it has this type of technology. So the expectations for the average worker coming in are much higher than they've ever been before. We're also looking at new ways that organizations are working with the employees. It's not all full-time employees that are sitting at desks or in cubes. We're now in a very connected world, just like this environment that we're in right now. We are all virtual, and yet we are all collaborating. And so we're seeing even a contract type of employee that's never been done before, where the millennial generation is actually looking at, they feel more secure in their own ability to drive their own destiny than they are to believe in an organization that potentially could lay them off at any moment. So what you're seeing is a new network of teams coming together for a project, disbanding afterwards. And it could be employees in an organization that has different direct reports or supervisors, or people just coming in for that project and then leaving the organization. We're also looking at a new level of analytics and machine learning that is driving the personalization aspect of how everything happens in the organization. Predictive analytics are driving learning functions so that it says, oh, I've just taken this course, you might be interested in this type of course. So we're seeing a different approach to more of a personalization through the different technologies that are impacting our organizations in the world. And then we have the last piece, which is very interesting, in that the subversive business model. Technology is enabling organizations to have a very low threshold to enter into new opportunities. I mean, we just heard this week that Amazon is actually considering going into the banking business. What started first as a book company, like a Barnes and Noble, has now turned into this multinational conglomerate that is actually thinking about creating its own banking system. So the subversive business models are absolutely taking other organizations by surprise. Established companies in a certain industry now have to watch out for someone who may have been in a different industry, impacting them almost overnight. So when we look at the changes in the world of terms of technology, there we go. Some of the things that we've noted, and this is from Brandon Hall, or excuse me, Boston Consulting Group, and we've gotten some statistics, is that 92% of the companies are trying to reorganize in a way that allows them to build a new digital culture. They're thinking differently. However, only 14% are doing this successfully. When we look at internet traffic, outside of the North American continent where I reside, most of the traffic is being driven by mobile devices. And we see that over 40% is actually being driven to the internet by mobile devices, yet HR is slow to adopt. And we see that in many different instances, legal, HR departments determining the level of risk they want to have, whether it means an employee is always connected or it means an employee needs to be relegated to their time that they're technically on the clock. So we're seeing security issues, bandwidth issues, data issues that are not necessarily technical issues, they're more business issues. And those are going to be resolved fairly quickly as more and more platforms are being developed in a mobile-first identity. And we talked about predictive analytics, personalization, but we only see 36% of these organizations out there that are actually leveraging that, or surveyed, excuse me, and 9% are only leveraging that. And so we're looking at how lots of these trends are still trying to grab hold. People are talking about them, but they're not acting on them. And then the last thing that we see is the average lifespan of an organization is actually decreasing. When you look at from 1960 to today, the average lifespan is now just 15 years. It really has shrunk because of the innovation, the subversive business models, the opportunities for new organizations to pop up overnight. So we're seeing all of these pieces impact the employees. We talked about the consumer expectations. It's a talent world right now in which in many places, talent that you want has already been employed somewhere else. So you're having to drag and attract these people away from where they are. And that's where it comes into the idea for the organization to survive. You've got to have different ways to innovate, because what we've found is that without innovation, the lack of innovation, organizations will not thrive in this new economy, in this new digital transformation that we're looking. So for the reality of HR, it really comes down to how to deal with these challenges. The business is still the business, but really the driving engine of it now, the fuel for this organization is talent, and HR is at that front of the talent war. So we look at constant disruption. You know, leaders are trying to deal with the different challenges in digital, changing models. And how are you going to do that? You've got to get the right people. HR is absolutely the type of organization that can drive this change, that can provide the talent, that can provide the information to say, these are not risks that we need to take. These are essential items we need to make sure we adapt to. And then ultimately, if you can get that engine running with the right people, the innovation, the ideas, having an environment that is attracting the right talent, that helps the outcomes of your business and your workforce. So when we look at how does HR take advantage of disruptor-driven changes, we look at some of the things that a digital organization needs to do. They need to make sure that they're able to adapt to the changes in the marketplace. They have to support the growth of that organization, and then they have to deliver value. And that's ensuring that they have that seat at the table that so many HR executives want to have, that they believe they deserve, and they really ought to have now that talent is the differentiator in our organizations. So when we talk about the opportunity to rewrite the rules to reflect the shifts in the mindset and behavior to lead, organize, motivate, manage, and engage the 21st century workforce. And HR is at the forefront of doing this. So when we talk about what a digital organization is and the transformation to being a digital organization, it's about the digital workplace, making sure that you have that connected, modern digital experience. That's what employees are seeking. That's what the millennials are seeking, the generations behind them, and even our baby boomers and quite honestly, the Gen Xers like myself. We want to have that integrated experience. We want to be able to feel like the technology we're using at work is actually ahead of the technology we use personally. We look at the digital workforce. You still have processes and people that are probably not digital ready yet. And that's a transition and a transformation that needs to occur, because while the employee may be ready for it, the processes that they deal with on a day-to-day basis are not. And that's where you have to make sure that you're developing not only the employee, but also the processes. And then your digital HR, and that's defining how your services are delivered to the business. When you think about the employee experience, from a recruiting to an onboarding to a developing to a succession planning type of experience, the data that's involved in that is often broken and fragmented. We find that the more connected, the more integrated those options are for those types of systems, the greater the data happens. The processes need to evolve to work with those systems as well. You cannot take a broken old process, manual process, and expect to flip it straight into a technology platform that is built to be fully integrated. And so this is where the idea of the digital workforce, digital workplace, and the digital organization come together. They have to all align so that you have the expectations fully mapped out. And this is a painful transition part. This is why a lot of organizations are not digital ready right now. They're attempting to continue to hold on to their old processes and not adapt them to take advantage of the new technology. So we're going to look at a couple of different imperatives in terms of how organizations should be looking at transforming to become a digital organization. So when you think about the business, the idea is how can they restructure their organization to better align with technologies. We talked earlier just about how the contract employee is becoming more and more prevalent, that employees don't want to be part of a broader culture in some instances. They want to be independent. Eliminating unconscious bias. This is something that's continued to be part of the HR area in terms of ensuring that you're not having a bias towards an individual based on their background, based on the schooling, based on anything. You want to make sure that you're attracting the talent, the people that are correct for the job. Gender balance is huge these days in terms of making sure that we have representation across the board, and we're looking for the best employee, not based on anything other but their capability of doing things. Workplace wellness is also important. When we think about the millennial generation coming in, purpose is a huge thing that they want to have. They want to feel that they're part of something larger, that there's a greater intent for what they're doing. And so improving workplace wellness is something that's very important. And then lastly, creating digital workplaces. Again, this is the idea that when I apply for an organization, I apply online. When I receive my response, I am able to use electronic documents to sign them. If I come in, I should have all that information already served up. My 90-day plan should be in place online, that I check it as I develop. All this seamlessly happens. This is what a digital workplace is. But when we confront employees with maybe an online enrollment into their organization, but yet provide them paper after that, we find that in the first 90 days, actually in the first week, some instances, if the digital experience does not align with the expectations of the employee, there's a greater chance that they may leave that organization. We think about individuals from a transformation perspective. There's the idea of evolving leadership in terms of wanting to continue to move forward in their roles in the organization. We also have a deficit in terms of the number of vacancies that are available in leadership. So we're looking at having to move them forward faster. Demonstrating strong culture. Organizations must be something of a cultural place. As we talked about the purpose. The idea of evolving performance management, no longer the annual review, but monthly check-ins, to provide that option to go tacking back and forth very quickly versus once a year. Becoming an employer of choice. This is important. The monikers of Fortune Best Place to Work or Training Top 125 or anything else to attract employees. As I said, you've got to attract employees away from the areas and organizations that they're in already, because those are already employed that you want. And then the idea of career management. People want to know where they're going. The more they can see and chart their own paths in organizations from a career development perspective is very important to them as well. And then last, as we look at transformation imperatives, policies. And this is a very difficult part, because this is a transition and a change that requires a lot of change management, a lot of process documentation. to align with the opportunities and the capabilities of platforms that are out there and technologies that are out there. You cannot just do a lift and shift. It has to be transformed. And so we look at policies, compliance, ownership of the content could be curated from a group versus an individual, the impact that these are having on the organization, and the idea of a personalized approach. This is where we see the world was changing, how it's changing in our organizations. So we really believe that in terms of moving forward and redesigning the organization to pursue success is this develop, lead, and achieve approach. And the idea is that you want to develop your people. Leadership other than salary is, development other than salary is one of the greatest indicators and drivers for organizations and their people. The employees want to develop. They want to constantly learn. Salary is somewhat secondary in some instances. And so we want to make sure we're developing our people. We're providing the leaders in the organization the information that they need to have from a development perspective, from a business perspective. And then we want to make sure that these organizations, from their individuals, from their leaders, have the ability to be innovative and have a sustainable approach to continue to grow and not be one of those companies that has suddenly dropped from 60 years in their average lifespan to 15. Clicker, here we go. So when we look at the idea of what Skillsoft and SumTotal provide, we look at the idea of the develop, lead, and achieve. And this is part of our overall DNA in our organization. When we think about what SumTotal provides from a pure platform perspective, we have a full HCM suite that provides digital opportunities to develop, lead, and achieve. And then Skillsoft, which is our parent company, is a leader in e-learning, has content that is rich and helpful for development in the leadership of the organization. And so when you combine the two assets in terms of content and platform in a develop, lead, and achieve, we really are looking at developing our talent, the learning capabilities of the organization, the workforce effectiveness to drive that behavioral change when it comes along with the content. So this is very much a sustainable approach and a digital approach to the next generation that we see to help organizations continue to grow and thrive. So I think we're very close to the time here so that we can move over to possible Q&A, but just really want to kind of summarize this quickly in the state that we do have a new reality for HR. We have the changing expectations, the new ways of working, the hyper-segmentation of analytics, subversive business models. We have our digital organization, which is digital workplace, workforce, and HR. Talent integration is identifying the potential that we have within our walls. Upskilling is a huge thing. You want to make sure that you're keeping the people, but you're keeping them engaged. And the idea of upskilling, providing them opportunities to grow in their roles into other roles, keeps them in that organization, keeps them engaged. You want to actively keep engaged employees in your organization. Develop them, measure the effectiveness of what you're doing to drive that change. And then lastly, we have, from a readiness perspective, Skillsoft SumTotal has a learning and talent maturity framework that helps organizations identify where they currently are in terms of their learning and talent maturity and provides a roadmap and a path towards greater maturity for the organization. We provide transformation blueprints as well as a talent strategy vision map. So these are services that we provide from a thought leadership perspective in addition to platform and content. So we're very happy to be part of the digital world, helping drive organizations towards that opportunity to become more effective, more mature, and more innovative in their industries. So with that, I will pause for questions or any comments.
Thank you, Brent. It was truly insightful, and we have some questions. So I'll just pick up the first one, which says, what would you say are the critical elements of a modern digital experience?
Excellent question. The modern digital experience really maps to what we all experience at home day to day. You know, we all have one of these devices in our pocket, on our hip, in our purse constantly. anything you want to do, you pretty much can do it. We've changed the way we live our lives because of the access to information, because it's in a moment, it's contextual, it has that opportunity to give us what we need. That's the same approach that you should have in the workplace, is that the moment you need the information, the moment you need to do something, it should be available to you in a seamless experience, so that if I decide I want to take off tomorrow, I should not have to worry about trying to jump through a series of hoops. I should be able to quickly tap in here that I want to tell my boss I'm off tomorrow, or if I need to find an answer to information, I should be able to find it as readily on my computer as I can on my iPhone, Android device, or tablet.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Brent. The next question that I would like to pick up would be from one of our viewers who says, whose question is, how should one start to build a talent maturity framework?
Excellent. I will tell you, first of all, if you want to go to assess.skillsoft.com, that is a link that will take you to a diagnostic that I helped co-author. The diagnostic has 9 indicators across 5 stages. And what we do is we assess you based on responses for each of those indicators at each of those stages. When you take the diagnostic, you're asked several questions. When you finish it, you're actually given a white paper that gives you an itemization of where you currently are, but then we map out where you actually will go and what things you can do based on our 6,700 customers, 45 million employees that are Skillsoft customers. And it's thought leadership at its best, but it's also bite-sized enough to help an organization identify how mature they are from a learning and talent perspective, and then help them chart their path forward.
Well, we still have time for one more question.
Okay.
What are the areas one organization should take care of while implementing the digital talent strategy?
Oh, what are the areas one organization should take care of? You know, I think it's the people processes. And the thing that I'm most cognizant of is how the employee experience happens. When you consider the platforms and systems that are out there that you're asking employees to engage in, often they are separate systems. They're platforms never designed to be together. What I would always suggest is that put yourself in the employee seat. Too often, I've been on the committees where we were looking at the back end of technology. You should be taking the perspective of the employee and asking them, how difficult is it to do basic tasks? If it's difficult for someone to onboard, if it's difficult for someone to find where their vacation is, if it's difficult for someone to put in a performance appraisal, those are areas that they will not use that are going to impact their ability to whether or not they want to stick around or not. And so do not create those hurdles. A perfect example, I was in South Africa, and there was a company that was like the Google of South Africa. They had ping pong tables and cafeterias and bean bags and wonderful things. But when I spoke with them, they said that their systems for HR were so difficult to maneuver that you could take away everything, all the fun toys that they had, because that was not something they enjoyed working with. So that was one of the problems. I do see one of the questions. I will say it again. The link to the diagnostic is assess.skillsoft.com. And you can take that online, fill out some basic information, and you will immediately get results. And it's a great diagnostic tool. We're actually in the process of updating it. The current one has learning and talent. We are adding workforce as a third dimension. So look for that update to be done. But we really want to help organizations transform in this digital economy. We believe that those that can make the transition to a digital organization really will thrive in the next millennium.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brent. I can, I'm sorry, see a lot of more questions coming in, but we're running out of time. So what we'll do is we'll navigate to the networking zone, and that's where, Brent, you can pick up these questions and you can answer them there. I'll request the audience also to please e-meet Brent in the networking zone right after the session is over. I'd like to thank you once again, Brent. It has been a wonderful session, truly insightful. I'm sure there are a lot of key takeaways for the audience on, how HR can support digital transformation. And we request the audience to share their key takeaways with Brent after the session is over. So before I just say, I let you go, Brent, I'd like to share the secret code for this session with everyone. That is hashtag HRTrans4. So that's hashtag HRTRANS and then numeric 4. That's the secret code for this session. So please go ahead, visit our partner booths, chat with them, and please do meet Brent in the networking zone. Thank you once again, Brent. It has been a pleasure having you on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. See you in the next session. The next session would be in 20 minutes on, it's going to be a masterclass on how are you leveraging BPO for your HR function. See you there. Thank you.